Hi, this is Usha. Welcome to Rathod's IAS. In this lecture, we are going to discuss current affairs of 27th March 2021. In this lecture, we are going to discuss 7 topics which are very much relevant to UPSC. So let's get started with our discussion and let us see first article. So if you see title of first article, it mainly says that India Bangladesh must fight terror together. So this is statement which is given by our Honorable Prime Minister. So this article mainly talking about India Bangladesh relationship, right? So this article mainly talking about India Bangladesh relations. So this article is important regarding GS paper 2 under international relations. So you can expect mains question regarding this topic. So from prelims point of view, you need to see which are states which are having boundary with Bangladesh. Okay. So now let us try to understand this article in a great detail. So if you see countries which are sharing boundary with India, so we have here Pakistan, right? So we have Pakistan which is mainly sharing boundary, and here we have Nepal, here Bhutan, and here in this area that is China is present, and we also have this Bangladesh. And in Pak occupied Kashmir area, we saw Afghanistan is also sharing. So this Pak occupied Kashmir is under control of Pakistan. So because of this, we do not have direct boundary sharing with Afghanistan now. Okay. And now let us try to understand this article in a great detail. So first we are going to see context, and later on we are going to see some important details regarding this article, and we are also going to see some important facts here. So why this India Bangladesh relations is in news? So why this is in news? Because Bangladesh is celebrating 58th anniversary of its independence, that is on March 26, right? So because of this, India invited to that celebrations, and India visited that Bangladesh. So because of this India Bangladesh relations is in news now. Now let us see context. Here Prime Minister visit to Bangladesh, and in this context they mainly talked about some important things regarding India's role, in what role played by India in Bangladesh liberation war. So in this context our Prime Minister mainly said that contemporary Bangladesh was created with the blood of the freedom fighters and Indian soldiers who were martyred in war of liberation of 1971. So in 1971 Bangladesh liberation war, so many of our Indian soldiers they participated, and many of these martyrs are mainly our Indian soldiers, they died in this liberation war. So regarding these details, we already discussed about relationship between India and Bangladesh in our yesterday's editorial session, right? So if you have not watched that video, so please once watch that video, then you will have some clarity regarding so in which areas we are having cooperation between India and Bangladesh. So that point will be very important to write mains answer actually. Okay. And now let us see some details regarding this article. So addressing a special gathering on National Day celebrations of Bangladesh. So this National Day celebrations marked 50th anniversary of country's independence, that is Bangladesh independence. So in this context, our Prime Minister also said that both countries, that is India and Bangladesh, they should fight jointly against terrorism, and there is need of creation of received support all sections of political classes of Bangladesh, and Bangladesh is sustained by blood of freedom fighters of our country, such that the blood will create such a relationship that will not break under any pressure. So if you're talking about relationship between India and Bangladesh, India contributed a lot for liberation of Bangladesh. Okay. So before this liberation of Bangladesh, it is used to call as East Pakistan, right? So in this Bangladesh liberation war of 1971, India mainly participated and supported Bangladesh, right? So in this context, there are many soldiers of Indian side, they died. So because of this, we can talk this India-Bangladesh relationship as a blood relationship. Okay. So because of this context mainly says that blood will create such a relationship that will not break under any pressure. Okay. In this context, our Prime Minister also paid homage to those who participated in this war. Okay. And he also paid homage to those who lost their lives. in this Bangladesh Liberation War of 1971. Okay, so this is about the important thing, and we already discussed about areas of cooperation. So this part will be important regarding means, and we discussed in a very great detail in our yesterday's editorial analysis. So if you have missed that video, please watch it again. And now let us see next article. Title says Japan to fund Andaman and Nicobar metro expansion. So this article mainly talking about India-Japan relationship, especially we are attracting many investments from Japan to India. So this article mainly talking about Japan. It is going to fund metro expansion in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and as well as in Andaman and Nicobar Islands we are going for development, and also we are going to have expansion of our metro in 4 areas in our country. So this article is important regarding international relations, which mainly comes under GS paper 2. So now let us have a detailed discussion on this topic. So first let us see where is this Japan is present. So here we have India. So here we have Japan here. Okay, so in this way you have to remember some important facts regarding whenever any country which appear in news. So we are going to talk relationship between these two countries, that is India and here Japan. So now let us try to see what is context. Here context mainly says that it is first ever official development assistance project in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, it is first ever official development assistance. So in this context, Japan approved grant aid worth of about 4.02 billion, or if you are converting into rupees, it is rupees 265 crores. So this amount of grant aid will be focusing on improving of power supply in islands, and also we are stressing on some important areas of islands because of static geopolitical location of islands here. So if you are talking about Andaman and Nicobar Islands, they are located in this Bay of Bengal, right? So we can say whenever we want to focus on Indo-Pacific region, so here this Bay of Bengal region, that is in this Andaman and Nicobar Islands, which provide an important strategic area. So whenever we are increasing our air base or naval base in this area, so we can have good sight in this Indo-Pacific region. So because of this, we are going for development projects in this Andaman and Nicobar Island, mainly to increase our focus on Indo-Pacific region. So this grant aid will also helpful to improve power supply in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And if you see some details which are highlighted in this article, it mainly says that Japan also extended loans of 22.95 billion for executing 4 major metro projects. So first one here is Delhi Metro Phase 4, and second one is Bangalore Metro Phase 1 expansion, etc. So these loans agreements, they were signed between India and Japan, that is mainly made through this Japan International Cooperation Agency. So this Japan International Cooperation Agency mainly giving loans for India for these types of projects. First one is development of Andaman and Nicobar, and also for extension of 4 metro projects in our country. And what will be significance here? So first one here is, if you're talking about Andaman and Nicobar, they are mainly located at geopolitical location. It plays a very crucial role for our shared vision. So our shared vision here is Indo-Pacific region that should be free, that should be open, and as well as inclusive. So in this Indo-Pacific region, we have one important choke point, that is Strait of Malacca. So through this strait, about 1/3 of world trade will be happening. So we need to ensure freedom of navigation in this Indo-Pacific region. So it is one of shared vision. So mainly to maintain that shared vision, so this type of development projects will be very important. And next important thing here you need to know here is, there is one important crucial island demonstrate that commitment of both countries are realizing stable, peaceful, and prosperous Indo-Pacific. And second one is, whenever we are going for development in this Andaman and Nicobar, so it will also showcase how stable relationship between two countries, and how peaceful we are, and how prosperous we are in regarding this Indo-Pacific region. And next important thing that should know here is the procure of about 15 megawatt hour batteries, and as well as some power system stabilizers that will also helpful for better utilization of solar power which is generated in this southern Andaman. So these are some important significance here. And these projects will also include crop diversification in Himachal Pradesh. such that it will also ensure proper ground table recharge and as well as rural water supply. So we are mainly focusing on mitigating fluorosis. That means fluorine content excess in groundwater. Then whenever people who are taking that fluorine contained water, that will be leads to some harm here, harm to especially bones. Okay, so we can see yellow coloring of teeth, and we can also see some osteoporosis in bones. So those are some important effects that are caused by fluorine or fluorosis. And now let us try to talk about some important facts, okay, regarding India-Japan relations. So if you're talking about India and Japan, they share robust ties with cooperation, mainly some areas of defense, science, cooperation, and also even trade. So in these areas, we are sharing proper cooperation, okay. And we also have Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed railway also. In 2014, India and Japan, they upgraded their relationship to special strategic and global partnership. And next one is India-Japan Digital Partnership, also launched in October 2018. And with India and Japan, they also have comprehensive economic partnership agreement, and they came into force from August 2011 onwards. Okay, and this agreement will cover different areas, different fields like goods, services, investments, and intellectual property rights, custom procedures, movement of natural persons. So these all are included under this CEPA, that is CEPA, that is Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement between India and Japan. And if you're talking about especially bilateral exercises between India and Japan, so we have GIMMEX, we have Shinyu Maitri, and we have Dharma Guardian. And even Japan is also part under this maritime exercise of Malabar and even Quad. Okay, so these are some important facts that you should remember regarding this article. And now let us see next article. Title says no iron curtains around electoral bonds, says Supreme Court. So we discussed about this electoral bonds number of times in our Hindu news analysis. So we are not going to see any facts or basics regarding this electoral bonds. So it is your duty to revise those electoral bonds now. So this article mainly focusing on this electoral bonds, right? So this will be important regarding prelims and also even mains. And today's mains question is also based on this electoral bonds. And this article which comes under GS paper 2 under polity. So now let us try to understand this article in a great detail. So if you see context, it mainly says that Supreme Court said that a little effort will go a long way in piercing veil of secrecy about electoral bonds. So recently one PIL mainly filed regarding to stall electoral bonds regarding this assembly polls. So in this context, Supreme Court mainly said that a little effort will go a long way that will lead to piercing veil of secrecy about this electoral bonds. So if you are talking about this PIL, which mainly talked about apprehensions that corporate houses, domestic and as well as foreigners who are mainly funding anonymously to political parties here, that will also lead to some problems in our democracy. So because of this, here PIL mainly said that we need to stall this electoral bonds for giving this assembly polls. Okay. So in this context, Supreme Court said that there is a little more effect that need to cull out such information from both sides, like we need to get information from who are purchasing this bonds, that is from purchaser side and also from political party side here. Okay, so in this context, court said that whatever money which is spent by companies should be easily traced online on website of Ministry of Corporate Affairs. So this is the thing which is said by our Honorable Supreme Court. And next one is, it also said that details can also be obtained in physical form from registrar of companies. Mainly that can be obtained upon payment of some prescribed fee. So whenever any prescribed fee it is paid here, so we can also get that information in a physical format also. And this electoral bond scheme will also mandate political parties to file audited statements of accounts, and also since Companies Act also requires financial statements of registered companies. So here under this Companies Act, it also says that financial statements, they need to be registered, and also this electoral bond scheme also mandates political party to audit their accounts. Okay, so because of these two important things, we can know easily information. So this is the thing which is said by our Supreme Court. So Supreme Court also said that purchase as well as encashment of bonds, so whatever that are happening to banking channels, so they always reflected in documents. So because of this, whenever information is reflected in documents, that eventually come to public domain. So there is no air of seriousness regarding this electoral bond. So this is the statement which is given by our Honorable Supreme Court. And now let us see next article. Supreme Court stays non-committal on Rohingya issue. So this article mainly talking about Rohingyas. So recently Rohingyas in news, right? So we need to know about some facts regarding this Rohingyas that might be important from prelims point of view. There are high possibility to get this Rohingyas issue in your prelims and also even mains. So now let us try to understand this article in a very great detail. So if you see about this Rohingya issue, so if you see context why it is in news. So one recent application which is filed by NGO. So name of that NGO is AREA, that is Association for Democratic Reforms. So it mainly said that release of about 150 Rohingyas, they are reportedly detained in Jammu jail for stalling for deportation. So these are Rohingyas, about 150, they are listed in Jammu and Kashmir, and they are mainly stalling for deportation of this 150 Rohingyas. So in this context, Supreme Court said that Supreme Court maintained a non-committal tone when its judicial conscience was stopped. About, if you're talking about especially this atrocities of Rohingyas, so whenever they are sent back or deported back to their country here, home country, they may face on deportation back to Myanmar. So mainly in this context, Center represented Solicitor General, that is Mehta, mainly he said that Rohingyas who fled persecution in Myanmar to India, they were deported only after government of that country confirmed their nationality. So here in this context, whenever any appeal that is made to Supreme Court by any NGO here, mainly to asking about deportation of this Rohingya, Center mainly says that so we are going to send these Rohingyas back to their country whenever, only when government of that country confirmed their nationality. So in this context, CJI, that is Chief Justice of India, remarked that the fear is that once they are deported, they may be slaughtered, but we cannot stop it. So in this context, Solicitor General said that India is not a capital of immigrants of world. So in this context, CJI mainly argued that if at all any other country wants them back, like Rohingyas, or India, whenever India wants to give them back enough, so you cannot send anybody to a place where they can be killed. Okay, so this is important thing which is mainly highlighted by our Supreme Court. And now let us see some facts regarding these Rohingyas. So these Rohingya people, they are stateless, they are Indo-Aryan ethnic group, they reside in Rakhine state which is located in Myanmar. Okay, and if you see estimates mainly says that 1 million Rohingyas living in Myanmar before 2016 to 2017 crisis here. Okay, and estimated that about 6,25,000 refugees from Rakhine, Myanmar, they have crossed border into Bangladesh since 2017 August onwards. So if you're talking about United Nations, it mainly said that one of the most persecuted minorities in world, they are Rohingyas here, and it mainly says that they are mainly deemed citizenship under 1982 Myanmar nationality law. So under this Myanmar nationality law of 1982, we need to provide citizenship to them. So this is statement which is given according to this United Nations. And if you're talking about Rohingyas history in this region, it already traced back to 8th century, but Myanmar law doesn't recognize this ethnic minority as one of 8 national indigenous races who are present in that Myanmar. So this is gist of this article. I hope it is clear. And now let us see next article. Title says 40% of RTI rejections did not cite valid reasons, says analysis. So this article is important, especially regarding governance point of view, which comes under GS paper 2. And this governance is especially important regarding mains from not prelims point of view. So in this context, you need to know what is this RTI, right? So now let us try to understand this article in a great detail. So if you see context, it mainly says that Center has only rejected 4.3% of all RTI requests in 2019 to 2020. So this context mainly says that in year 2019 to 2020, just 4.3% of RTIs they were rejected. So in this way, this mainly contributes Everest low ever rate. And next one is, this is data which is given according to Central Information Commission annual report. And here I want to give you a small homework. So please refer about this Central Information Commission annual report. Okay. And out of this 4.3% of rejections, so out of this 4.3, mostly 40% of rejections, they did not include any valid reason. Okay. And did not invoke one of permissible exemptions which are clauses in RTI Act. And now let us see what are some important facts regarding this RTI. RTI Act came into existence in year 2005. So what is important aim? Important aim, it is to empower the citizens and also seek information from public authorities. And next important thing is, we can promote transparency and as well as accountability in working of government, and as well as it will also make some Indian democracy work for people in rural sense. So first important thing here is why we came with RTI. RTI will empower citizens mainly to seek information mainly from public authorities. Okay, and this will be very much helpful to promote transparency and as well as accountability in governance process. So now let us try to understand history. So if you see history, for first time RTI law was enacted in Sweden in 1766. And if you are talking about India, in India this RTI Act was floated by former Prime Minister of our India, that is VP Singh, in 1990s. And later on, first grassroots campaign regarding this RTI introduction that came up or that started by Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan in year 1994. And later on in 1996, national campaign for this people's RTI that started, and finally it led to formulated initiated draft of this RTI law for government. And in this context, Tamil Nadu government became first Indian state to pass this RTI Act. And later on we also came up with Freedom of Information, that is FOI Act. So this passed in year 2002, okay, but this could not be implemented. And later on in 2015, this RTI Act was passed mainly on recommendation of NAC, that is National Advisory Council, and it came to effect from October 12, 2005. So these are some important facts that you should remember regarding this article. And now let us see next article. So before seeing this article, I want to make a small announcement on this platform. We came up with this current affairs package course. Okay, so if you want to attend 2022, and this is right time to join this course, and also it is very useful and also highly beneficial. So in this course we are focusing on current affairs and also mains answer writing practice. So if you ask me what is importance of current affairs, about 50 to 60% of questions, either it may be prelims or mains or interview, you can expect questions from this current affairs part. Okay, and next one is, if you are talking about this mains answer writing practice, many students who are especially beginners, they ignore about this mains answer writing practice. So if they have cleared prelims also, they cannot clear mains for sure without proper answer writing skills. So in this course, we are mainly focusing on how to improve your answer writing skills through daily answer writing practice. And next one is, we also conduct prelims test on Sunday along with video solutions. So in this way, this course is highly beneficial to clear prelims and also mains. Okay, details of this course are given in description box, and please don't forget to visit that once. So if you want to talk to me directly, you can call me on this number, that is 8074765513. Okay, and now let us see next article. Title says dormant parliament feeding business. So this article mainly talking about our parliament which is decreasing its efficiency. So in this context, we need to know about 4 important bills that passed recently. So that are discussed in this article, and nothing it is much important regarding UPSC. So if you are talking about context, it mainly says that budget session of parliament ended on Thursday. So in this budget, 4 important bills have been passed. So first one is the Government of National Capital Territory of Delhi Amendment Bill 2021. So by passing this bill, it decreased power of Chief Minister, which are elected by people, and increased power of Lieutenant Governor, who is appointed by government here. Okay, so in this way powers of Lieutenant Governor increased here. So this bill mainly says that whatever action which is taken by Chief Minister headed by Council of Ministers in this Delhi, so they need to provide information to Governor, Lieutenant Governor, and his opinion also be taken into consideration. So in this way powers of CM will be decreased and powers of this Lieutenant Governor is increased with passage of this bill. And next one is Mines and Minerals Development and Regulation Amendment Bill 2021. So whenever we are passing this bill, it mainly amends one important act, that is Mines and Minerals Act of 1959. Okay, so whenever we have passed this bill, it mainly remains some end use restrictions on mines and ease conditions for captive mining. So captive mining means I am going and I am mining there. So whatever thing which I am mining in that mines, that will be used by only my industry here. Okay, so now because of this amendment, it mainly says that, so I am going and I am mining some amount here. So there is some amount which is left out, right? So that left out product now I can sell to another people, such that I can also generate some income. So this is about second important bill. And next one is the National Bank for Financing India and Development, now NABFID Bill 2021. So this bill mainly talks about creation of new government infrastructure finance institution. So it will also permit some private ones to enter this sector. And next bill here is Insurance Amendment Bill 2021. So we already discussed all these bills in our PIB and Hindu analysis. So this Insurance Amendment Bill 2021, that mainly increased FDI, that is foreign direct investment in this insurance sector, from 49% to 74%. So these are four important bills that you should remember. And now let us see next article. Title says Deadly Trail. So this article mainly focusing on fire accidents in India. So this article mainly talking about recent fire that erupted in Mumbai hospital, that is Mumbai Private Hospital of COVID-19 in Mumbai. And recently we also saw Maharashtra's fire explosion, etc. Right? So in this case, we can connect this article to our disaster management, which comes under GS paper 3. So now let us try to understand important points which are highlighted in this article. So if you see context here, fire blazed out in a private hospital, that is private COVID-19 hospital in Mumbai. So because of fire accident that led to at least death of 9 people because of flames and as well as smoke that erupted. So because of this fire accidents, now there is increased attention to failure make fire safety a systemic imperative in public buildings. So whenever we are going for public buildings, like we can say auditoriums, we can say hospitals, we can say any infrastructure, we need to focus on this fire safety, because in recent times there are increased incidents of fire accidents that is seen here. So what might be causes? So causes here is hospital fires are very distinct entity when we are comparing with other public buildings. So there is also some presence of incapacitated patients. So patients, they all might be admitted to hospital because there is some improper health conditions they are facing. So because of this, whenever there is fire is happening, they can't come out of their beds and they can move. So because of some incapacitated patients who are present in this hospital, that will lead to death toll. And next one is oxygen suffused environment is present, and there is plenty of air conditioning is present, and there are plenty of oxygen storage, everything will be there, right? Oxygen cylinders are there, so they might also catch some fire. So there is also lack of sufficient physical space. Okay, so in this context, National Disaster Management Guidelines of 2016 issued by NMDA, that is National Disaster Management Authority, addressed some characteristics. It came with some recommendations how to maintain or how to prevent this fire accidents in public buildings. So if you see some recommendations, it mainly says that availability of open space to move. So we need to more space to move. And next one is we need to assess the quality of infrastructure, and we need to go for specifically electrical installations, and we need to go for ensuring retrofilling of structures with flame retardant materials, and we can also go for reduced crowding. So these are some important measures which are mainly which are given by this NMDA. And if you see in this context, what is further need? The need here is we must create scientifically designed public health such that it will also facilitate to meet the demands of populous cities also. And next one is we need to go for reversing policies of leaving these crucial functions largely for profit entities. So whenever any profit entities who want to go for public infrastructure here, so we need not to allow them, and those people who want to come up with these types of infrastructure, they need to follow guidelines of NMDA. So this is gist of this article. I hope it is clear. And now let us see today's main question. So what is electoral bond scheme? What are significance, benefits and concerns associated with it? Okay. So try to write answer within word limit of 250 words. So by this we are concluding today. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like, share and comment my videos. And don't forget to enroll this current affairs package. Thank you so much.